Hi, my name is Mary Walters. You should know who I am, and I actually think you've already met me. So, you should be saying, this is me when I'm a little baby. Oh, I'm so cute. I was always glad my name was Mary, because, Mary is the name of Jesus' mother, in the Bible. And that's her name. And so, I always liked my name. I liked it. And when my mom's name is Thelma, and my dad's name is Jesse Walters. And I remember when we lived in Utah. We lived in Utah at first, and I remember on Christmas morning, I got a broom. Oh boy, it was a little play broom with a little red handle on it. So now when my mom gets her broom out and sweeps the house, I can get my little broom out, my little tiny broom, and I can pretend like I'm sweeping with her. I liked that. We had Uncle Leroy lived with us. That's my dad's brother, Roy. And he had a car, nice car. And so he could drive my dad to school. My dad was going to school. He went to, in Logan, he went to Utah State University, USU. That's USU, a long time ago when he was there. That's not BYU. Don't confuse the two. That's a different college, okay? That's where he went to school. And he was studying agriculture, which means you grow things. And he went through school. He didn't quite finish, but he got a job with the Forest Service. He got a job in the Forest Service. And I remember one time while we were in Utah, my mom took me one day to see her mom, and her mom's name is Agnes, and Agnes Steele, and she lived in Salt Lake, and she took care of her dad, Job Hemsley. Maybe you have met him too. And I remember when we went out to visit them, and Grandpa Job took me out into his garden, and we sat out in his garden, his nice flower garden that he had, and that's him sitting out in his garden. That's Grandpa Job. He looks kind of mad, but he's a really nice guy. He's really nice. And one thing I remember about that house is everybody who lived there, when it was time to eat, you don't sit down. Don't sit down at the table. Everybody comes in and you pull out your chair, and everybody kneels down at their chair, kneels down, and you have family prayer. That is the only time I ever saw a family prayer. Because my mom and dad didn't do it. We had prayer. Well, my mom and dad didn't have family prayer, and nobody else ever did. And I remember when I was about 3 years old, that family prayer, I remember that. And I decided, I'm going to have family prayer in my family. We're going to do that every time when we eat. And I did, just so you know. And while I was there, I had a birthday. And I got a doll. I got a little doll. Oh, I'm so happy to have a doll. And cute little doll. And most dolls are made out of fabric, like cloth, so you can't get them wet. I got a doll that was actually rubber. And I thought it was so neat that I had a doll, and I could give that doll a bath like a little baby. Here you go, little baby. Splash, splash, splash. I'm giving my doll a bath. Splash, splash. And I was so happy to have a little doll. I just loved that. And so when my dad finished school, he had a master's degree, but he didn't finish his thesis, it's called. And so anyway, we moved back to Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho. And we lived up there. And Dad worked for the Forest Service for a little while. And we had well, just for a little while, and then my mom actually got a job, and it was for a guy. His name was Carl Lang, and he was German, and he was an old German guy, and he couldn't say my mom's name. Her name is Thelma, but he couldn't say the TH sound in Thelma because that German language doesn't really have that sound, and so he called her Tommy. Hey, Tommy. He called my mom Tommy, seriously. Anyway, he meant Thelma. We knew what he meant. And so when my mom went to work for a little while, my dad would stay home and take care of me. And what we would do is we would cut out the letters on old cereal boxes. We had cereal boxes. We cut out these letters on these old cereal boxes. There's Rice Krispies too and stuff like that. And we would cut out the letters, and then we would spell words with them right there on the floor. And I learned how to read doing that. I knew how to read before I ever went to school because my dad helped me learn how to read. And they had my mom and dad have a bed, and they made me a bed on the couch just across the hall from their room, and I'd sleep on the couch. And my parents had a bed, and I had an old scratchy red blanket that was made out of some old material, and I didn't like that, not at all. And so I would get out of here every night. Okay, there we go. I'd sleep just with my parents. It was just better. They had a nice soft blanket. Anyway, and about that, well, we're living in Rexburg. My mom and dad got a chance to buy a cafe. That's like a restaurant. And they got a chance to buy a cafe, and that would require both of them to go to work. And so when I was still pretty young, I was still about 3 years old, they took me to live with, out of Rexburg, it's a little place called Plano, to live with my grandma and grandpa. Do you know them? That's my Grandma Jenny and my Grandpa Frank. That's my dad's parents. And that's their daughter Dorothy, and they had some boys. Do you remember them? I think you have met them. And I loved living with my grandma and grandpa. They took good care of me, and they were happy to have me. And my mom, when I think she kind of thought that she wasn't planning to get me back again. She honestly wasn't. This worked out for her real well, and she thought maybe they could just keep taking care of me. And anyway, they did for quite a few years. And I liked living with them. It was really good. Let me tell you one thing that happened when we were living there. One time, Grandma and I went into town, and I saw some boys playing with a knife. And what they're playing is Mumbledy-Peg. And what you do is you flick a knife really hard, just a pocket knife, and you try to get it to land in the ground. You do a stick in the ground like that, okay? So they're throwing a knife. It's kind of a funny game. Anyway, that's what they would play. The boys would play, and you throw it, and so it just flicks and sticks in the ground like that. And that's what they were playing. They were playing some Mumbledy-Peg, and I thought, whoa, I want to do that. That was like a fun game. I didn't join them, but when we got home, I sneaked in the kitchen, and I got a knife, and I went, okay. And I ran out to Grandma's garden out there, and I was gonna try it and see if I could get this knife to work, and I would throw it in. It wasn't working. It wasn't working at all, and I didn't realize it, but the ground was really hard. I had the wrong kind of ground. The knife didn't stick very well, but I thought it was just, oh my God. I'm gonna make this knife stick in the ground, and so I got it, and I slammed it into the ground. Oh, I cut my hand. Oh, my hand slid right down the knife, and I cut my hand, and I ran in, and Grandma, I cut my hand. Oh my goodness, what are you doing? You're playing with knives? You shouldn't be doing that. And so she patched up my hand. She patched up my hand. It was my little finger on my hand. This finger, that finger on my hand. And so she bandaged up my hand, and it was fine. It stopped bleeding. And it was okay. And then I got in trouble. Anyway, it was okay. And anyway, after a little while, we took the bandage off, and it was fine. Somebody noticed that I wasn't using my little finger, that finger. It would always stick out like that. And somebody noticed it. And so I'm like, why didn't you do it? So she took me into the doctor to see, and he gave me a little look over, and what had happened is when I slid that knife down, it cut my finger open, this finger on my right hand, and it cut the tendon of the finger. Do you know what a tendon is? A tendon is what, you have muscles that move your hand, right? Move your hand. But a tendon holds the muscle onto the bone. You got to have tendons. And I had cut my tendon. We didn't know that. And so I couldn't pull my pinky in. I couldn't do that anymore at all. My pinky would always stay out. And sometimes I would pull under like that, and then I could hold it in. Other than that, I could open it again, but I never could pull my pinky in again. And if I had to hold something, my pinky was always out. Just like that. And it stayed that way the whole rest of my life. The whole rest of my life. I just had a pinky that would stick out like that. Oh, well, all right. Well, one other time, my dad, he sent us a bunch of oranges and bananas. In fact, he did that a few times. He would just send them out from town where they lived. And, oh, we thought that was such a treat. We loved those oranges and bananas, and I just loved living with my grandma and grandpa.